Hello there, my name is Axel. I'm from grade 9B, and today I will be presenting about my understanding regarding of the topic of radiation. So, what is radiation? So, for starters, radiation are energy that moves from one place to another in the form of waves or particles. And there is two types of radiation, which is non-ionizing radiation and ionizing radiation. Non-ionizing radiation is a type of electromagnetic radiation that cannot knock electrons out of an atom. Meanwhile, his cousin, ionizing radiation, can knock the electron out of the atom, which can result into the atom being positively charged. The example of ionizing radiation in modern stuff is X-rays, where the machine will give a wave of radiation inside your body to picture the things inside your body or your bones. Now, how do radiation affect our body? As you know, the atoms consist of the nucleus, the proton, the neutrons, and the electron. The proton serves as the positive energy, and the electron serves as the negative energy. So, like I explained, radiation knocks electrons out of the atom, which can result in a process called ionization, making the atoms positively charged. That positively charged atom then can become radicals, which can attack cells of the body, causing oxidative stress. If you're wondering what oxidative stress is, it's when a cell got attacked by radicals or the positively charged atom, and it'll become rotten like this. So an example of it is like a fresh fruit becoming rotten. Moving on, I'm gonna explain about the symptoms of radiation exposure. So radiation exposure is when you get exposed to ionizing radiation. So the early symptoms of radiation exposure, you can get diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, fever, and dizziness and disorientation. It's not like very deadly yet at this stage, but it's like soon you're gonna regret saying that. Later symptoms of radiation exposure is skin damage, hair loss, confusion, bleeding. And yeah, basically it ruins your body. That's why radiation sucks. So, moving on. Now I'm gonna be explaining about the catastrophic accident that happened in the topic of the radiation. So there's a cool I found online. There's no safe amount of radiation, even small amount to harm, which is true. Before we get started, I want to be briefly explaining about nuclear reactor and how it works. So basically, nuclear reactor have three major parts: the control rod, the fuel rod, and the moderator. So the fuel rod is to power up the nuclear chain reaction. The control rod aims to control the nuclear chain reaction, and the moderator aims to fasten up the nuclear chain reaction. So if you have been paying attention in science class, you know energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. So this is basically how nuclear reactor works. So the water inside the reactor will start to boil from the reaction and will emit steam, and that steam will move the turbine on the reactor, and the kinetic energy from the turbine will then power up generators, and that generators will emit electricity. So that how the reactor works. This process can be called nuclear fission. So during a nuclear fission, a neutron collides with a uranium atom and splits it, releasing a large amount of energy in the form of heat and radiation. Finally, now I can be explaining about Chernobyl. So, what happened in Chernobyl? To summarize it, as I explained before, the reactor contains three major parts: fuel rod, control rods, and a moderator. This tree acts as an essential part of the reactor, so Chernobyl scientists are trying to find a solution if a power outage happens. At first, they had a solution, which is diesel and genset backup power to keep the reactor running. But as you know, the genset will take about 2 minutes for it to work, and a nuclear reactor needs to keep in working and cool down for 24 hours non-stop. Even if it stops with a brief of 20 minutes, a meltdown will occur. So, one of the higher ups had a solution. He has speculated that the steam from the reactor will not immediately vaporize and disappear. He believes that some of the steam will have enough power to move the turbine for 2 minutes straight before the gensets start working. So, Chernobyl workers have been experimenting this speculation for 4 years straight, and the result was not very fulfilling. Until one night on April 26, 1986, the workers decided to do another experiment. You see, they need at least 700 megawatt to start doing the experiment, while reactor 4 generate about 1600 megawatt, which resulted in the workers to add more control rods to reduce the output of the electricity. They ended up adding too much control rods, which reduced the output to only 30 megawatt. The higher ups then ordered the workers to remove the control rods. They removed the control rods so much that they just left until 8 rods. A safe amount of control rods in a nuclear reactor need at least to be 15 watts. It can't be less or the reactor will overheat. The reactor was booming and fuming hot. The workers then pressed the emergency button that will essentially put many control rods that will eventually stop a meltdown from occurring. But fatally, the control rods that was supposed to stop the meltdown has a design flaw which did the opposite. Instead of stopping the reactor, it was heating it even more, and boom! A large explosion erupted. So, this is the effect of the incident. 31 deaths happened immediately. This is not like 31 deaths like all time, it immediately happened after the incident. And 1,100 kilometers radiation spread it throughout the area. This is the map of what happened after the incident. You see, mostly it spread it on Europe, but it has been detected on a bit of in the Middle East too. Now I'm going to be explaining about sievert. So sieverts are actually a form of, I guess, a form of like watt, where you need to like measure how much radiation that emits from the radiation. So sieverts like watt. So basically, an average nuclear worker will get affected by 0.01 sieverts. This is a modern nuclear worker, and a Chernobyl survivor will get emitted by 0.25 sieverts. A dose that a chance for a human to survive a radiation exposure is 1 until 8 sieverts. But of course, you can still get cancer even though you get that much. This is how many sieverts that Chernobyl was erupting all time. This is not like immediately all time for 27 years, 28 years. To 600,000 sieverts, which is very much. Now, I'm going to be explaining about the elephant foot. So the elephant foot is essentially a large mold that formed beneath the reactor 4. It is highly radioactive, ranging from 100 sieverts. This mold contains the material of highly radioactive fission products, plutonium, and other core materials. Now I'm going to be briefly explaining about the solution I have regarding to radiation exposure. So before we get deep into it, so I'm going to explain you about gene editing. So gene editing requires a tool called CRISPR. CRISPR is a gene editing tool. So how it works is that there will be a guide called the RNA that will find the error gene through sliding the DNA. And if the error gene has been discovered, there will be a scissor cord to Cas9 that will cut the genes and replace it with a much healthier one. So here's my idea. So an elephant DNA and a P53 gene have 20 plus copies of the tumor suppressor gene, which can detect the DNA damage and trigger the repair of cell deaths. So I have an idea about if we can put elephant genes on our DNA, that will definitely make humans much more immune to cancer and even radiation. My second idea is to put radioduran genes. So radioduran is the world's strongest bacteria from Guinness World Record. It's immune to radiation, severe drought, cold, heavy acidity, and heat. It's basically unbreakable, yeah, unbreakable. And it has a lifespan of over 1.5 million years. Of course, the lifespan part is just a speculation by scientists. And if we can put the genetics of radiodurans to the human DNA, we're not only gonna be resistant to radioactive, we can be a superhuman. Exactly. So putting this, it will make superhero comes to life. That's why I like. Now I'll be explaining my ethical dilemma. So, for me, I think the public or the people, civilians, will have mixed opinion regarding this newfound invention. Some of them will be happy as we reach a new step to the future, and some of them will what probably disagree with this invention as it's considered as an act of playing God. Some of them will have mixed feeling. But this new invention could be beneficial for the public as if it will drastically change the world of medication, reducing the worry of diseases. Also, I do think some people will be paranoid from this invention, fearing that animal genes will have negative effects to the body. The government will probably be delighted by this invention, as this invention will open up a lot of business opportunities, and it will be used in the military. Also, there will be a chance that they will implant this technique for medication and hospitals, as it provides a more effective way of curing diseases. The government will probably tend to invest more in this invention, as this newfound invention has a lot of opportunities in the medical field. And if I have the chance to alternate or have a more ethical way of improving this solution, maybe I could find a better way or safer way of extracting the DNA from certain animal. For example, cloning an existing gene that has been extracted from the animal. This will make DNA extraction much less risky. Also, for testing, maybe we could use a simulator to predict what will happen. With this alternative, the chances of the usage of the test subject will be less. Scientists could try to replicate the animal genes by using a gene maker or other software, but I suppose the technology is still limited in our present day. That's about it about my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a good day. And this is the sources I've used to create the presentation. Thank you.